Hi, everyone, and welcome to the podcast. So, in today's session, sorry, I'm Andy, I'm the clinical lead at Redicare. I should really introduce myself first. In today's session, what we're going to look at is just simple recipe swaps that are not difficult to make. And so, what I didn't want is to come on and go, look at all these complicated recipes. You can use these to help you with weight loss, improving your blood pressure, cholesterol, and so on. What I did want to do is go through the basics of why. So maybe do 10, 15 minutes on the ins and outs of why we make these food choices. And then I'll just talk through some simple swaps as opposed to here are complicated recipes you can make. So it's going to be very practical advice that'll begin in about 10 minutes. Okay, first and foremost, let's get going with just a little bit on the background of this stuff. Okay, let me just add this for a second. There we go. Okay, so in choosing the foods and recommending the foods that I'm about to recommend, I mean, there's a lot of science that goes into what we say, some of which has been recognized with international awards and that sort of stuff. So you're in good hands when it comes to the advice. But I just wanted to cover, why am I talking about low carb? What is it about low carb that's good for your health? Well, low carb is going to lower a hormone in your body called insulin. And the reason insulin goes high is, I mean, it can go high for a number of reasons, but it's predominantly sugar and carbohydrate that drive your insulin high. So we've moved as a society things. We've moved from thinking, and we just need to eat less calories, to understanding that actually what we need to do is we need to be cognizant that the main driver of weight, particularly around the midsection, is the hormone insulin. And the 80 calories from the can of Coke acts very differently in terms of fat storage, blood pressure, blood sugar levels, inflammation, promoting disease, compared to 80 calories from an egg, for example. They're entirely different, the latter being much, much better for you. Okay. Sorry, just had my computer trying to restart, which wouldn't be ideal. Okay, so what does drive obesity? And it's something called hyperinsulinemia. So it's not just too many calories. That was a real oversimplistic bro science way of thinking about things. It is, the newer model is known as the carbohydrate insulin model of obesity, which states that the main driver of fat, particularly around the midsection, is the hormone insulin. So what we need to understand is what type of foods cause your insulin to go up. So if we look at the three different types of foods or groups of what we call macronutrients or main nutrients that we can eat, we have fat. So think cream, cheese, fatty meats, butter, animal fats, plant fats, all that sort of stuff. Fat actually has a neutral effect on the hormone insulin, meaning that counter to what we would have thought before, fat does not make you fat. Now, if this is your first time hearing this, you're going to be thinking, well, that's an absolute shocker, because I would have thought that fat definitely makes you fat. That's why I've been eating low-fat yogurts. And funnily enough, that could have been one of the worst things you could do for your weight, because the low-fat yogurts, okay, they're lower in calories, they're lower in fat, tend to be higher in sugars. That's why they taste so nice. And they're actually going to cause weight gain, much more than a full-fat Greek yogurt, which is low in carbs and sugar. So fat doesn't make you fat. That's the first thing to know. Protein doesn't really spike the hormone insulin significantly. It does cause it to act in a kind of a pulsatile fashion. So your insulin pulses a little bit after you eat protein. But again, the body's a couple of million years of knowing how to deal with protein. It doesn't really know how to deal appropriately with refined carbohydrates. So think frozen pizzas, bread, cereal, muffins, granola bars, and other carbohydrates which will spike your insulin and cause weight gain, but are not really processed, would be high sugar fruits and below ground vegetables. So things like starchy vegetables like potatoes, sweet potatoes, and so on. Okay, so that's why we want to eat less of those foods, because we know that refined carbohydrates and very high carb foods are going to break down as sugar in your bloodstream. That's a key point here. All dietary carbohydrate, with the exception of fiber, so you're talking cereals, porridge, which surprises a lot of people, granola bars, rice, pasta, frozen pizzas, all that sort of stuff will spike your blood sugar levels, because all dietary carbohydrate, with the exception of fiber, boils down to sugar in your blood. So a bowl of cornflakes might be 120 calories, but it leaves you with the equivalent of 14 or 15 spoons of sugar in your blood. Now, I'm not saying cornflakes have 15 spoons of sugar in them. They don't. They have almost none. But by the time it boils down in your bloodstream, it's the equivalent to eating 15 spoons of sugar, which significantly impacts your insulin production. Insulin goes way up and you gain fat around the midsection. And insulin resistance. Now, insulin resistance is when you keep doing that over and over again. You eat a lot of processed food, a lot of processed refined carbohydrates and sugars. Something happens called insulin resistance. It's tricky to explain, but it's basically insulin is produced at a high level for a long period of time. Your body kind of becomes burnt out in terms of how to produce insulin. And instead of producing less, it produces more. But because there's so much being produced, your body stops responding to it. Kind of like how you get used to white noise and it can help you fall asleep. You get used to it. You stop responding to it. It stops disturbing you. And basically you're in a scenario where your body's producing loads of insulin, but can't use it. So you need insulin-like drugs to lower your blood sugar levels. And we actually call that pre-diabetes and eventually type 2 diabetes. So high blood sugar levels leads to diabetes, weight, particularly weight around the midsection, issues with your cholesterol levels referred to as dyslipidemia, more specifically your good cholesterol going down, HDL, and your triglycerides going up. High blood pressure, neurological disorders, many neurological disorders, including Alzheimer's, Parkinson's, dementia, ADHD, autism, all have components of dysglycemia or certainly are made worse by them. Sleep apnea, PCOS, polycystic ovarian syndrome, which is the leading cause of infertility, and many of the hormone-positive cancers are to some degree supported and made worse by having high blood sugar levels. Okay, so just very quickly, this is, again, these foods do not have any sugar in them necessarily, although some of the flavored porridges would. But if you eat a bowl of porridge, it leaves you with the equivalent to when the carbohydrate breaks down in your bloodstream, 14 spoons of sugar in your blood. And this is not up for debate anymore. There's publications around this by Dr. David Unwin and a couple of other researchers showing that dietary carbohydrate boils down to sugar in your blood. And if we overconsume these, we will gain weight. And we all know this. If you eat a lot of bread, if you eat a lot of rice and pasta and that sort of stuff, you know you're going to gain weight around the midsection. And if all you do listening to this is go, that's interesting, you know, maybe I should just have the steak with broccoli and cauliflower and just quit potatoes. And maybe instead of having the bacon and eggs sandwich in the morning or the breakfast roll, maybe I'll just have the contents of it. I have the 3 sausages, the 2 eggs, and the black pudding. And just see, does it make any sense what he's talking about? And you will notice 3 or 4 pounds of weight loss in the first week and go, this is wild. Okay, so based on that, the foods that we want to reduce based on a ton of science for optimal weight loss and to improve your cholesterol and your blood pressure, energy levels, all that sort of stuff, and to minimize the chance that you can ever become type 2 diabetic or pre-diabetic, eat less bread, rice, pasta, cereals, full sugar fizzy drinks, so diet ones are pretty okay. Cakes, pastries, starchy vegetables, and high sugar fruits. All right, so what does that leave us with? That leaves us with real single ingredient foods that your grandparents would recognize as foods, and foods that we've eaten in some shape or form for 2.4 million years. Meat, fish, seafood, full fat cheese. There is nothing to be gained by having low fat cheese. Green vegetables or any vegetable that grows above the ground, to be fair. Just be careful with the ones that are below ground, like potatoes and sweet potatoes. Eggs, avocado, chia seeds, real butter. No point having Flora Proactive or Benecol spread or low cholesterol spreads. I promise you that's not the way it works. Real butter, real food, and full fat dairy, including cream, full fat Greek yogurt, and so on. So let's take a look at a couple of ideas here. And this is just to give you a real quick snapshot, 15-minute chat overview of, so what changes could I make in my diet without following the entire ReadyCare resource pack, which you're free to do. Email me if you want it, and I'll show you a recipe book we have here as well. So a simple one is find a low-carb granola if you're looking for a breakfast cereal type replacement, because granola had this healthy name and everyone said, oh, well, granola is good for you and there's no added sugar. And it's very high in carbohydrates and often in naturally occurring sugars because they put things like dried mango and raisins and stuff. It's terrible, terrible for your blood sugar levels and terrible for you. But you can make a low carb granola or a keto granola recipe. You'll find them online. We have them. If you want ours, you can have it. I would be careful buying low carb and keto granolas because they are extortionate money. You get like a little bag there that if you were being honest, you could easily have in 2 servings, and it's like €12. They're crazy money. But that's a good option. You know, the recipe is good if it just has nuts, a little bit, maybe a little bit of honey, coconut oil, and not a whole lot more in it. That's the proper one to have. Don't put dried fruit into it. Dried fruit is full of sugar. Bacon and eggs on toast. If you're having that every morning or your breakfast roll, drop the toast. Just take out the bread and double up on what you're having in terms of the meat. That's really going to help with weight, lowering your insulin levels, blood pressure, cholesterol, the whole lot. Curries can actually be enjoyed as well. Just be careful. The rice is the main driver of that hormone insulin. So if you dial down the rice, or if you have cauliflower rice, which you'll see in a lot of supermarkets, just a tip, if you're buying cauliflower rice, if you're following this approach, the one in the shop, the kind of frozen one that you get, they're not great. You put them on the pan and they're kind of soggy and odd. I know we used to make it with, you'll see loads of recipes online, but we just get the cauliflower raw, use a grater, and grate it all down, grate a whole head down, pop it into the pan with some butter, a little bit of garlic granules, what else we put in it, salt, pepper, any other flavoring or spicing that you want. And it's really nice. It's a similar texture to rice and it does the job. This is a really handy one. We do this at least twice a week, where we get all of the stuff that we know is good in terms of the avocado, sour cream, salsa sauce, all stuff that's, you know, minimally processed, but also low carb. Mince, a little bit of fajita seasoning, and then we'll put it all into a low carb wrap. So you can get high protein, low carb wraps in places like Super Value. You see them in Aldi and Lidl occasionally, but you can definitely get them in Super Value that have like 4 grams of carbs per wrap or something like that. So that's great. So we just have like 1 or 2 big wraps each, and does you for dinner. Stir fries are fine. So it's just, again, it's a case of tweaking what you're eating as opposed to a complete overhaul. So sometimes people go, I'm never having bread and I'm not going to ever have wraps again. But again, just showed you there, you can have your low carb wraps. Stir fries are good. Just be careful with noodles and rice. So if you have a stir fry with mixed veg instead of rice, that's going to make a huge difference. And then stuff that a lot of people don't think about when it comes to eating low carb. So they kind of think like, well, I can't have this and I can't have that. And often crisps are something that people miss. Now, there's a couple of different examples of crisps that are actually compliant with a lower carb way of eating that will help you lose weight. One, again, are in Super Value. They're called Cheez-O's. I should have got a picture of them actually, but Cheez-O's. They're a small little kind of that shaped packet of crisps as opposed to the normal packet that are a bit fatter. You'll see them up next to the counter, and they are really, really nice. I think there's like a pickled onion flavor in a. They're made with cheese. They're crisps actually made with cheese, but they're really, really nice. The pickled onion flavor is lovely. It's like a purple packet. Or pork scratchings instead of crisps. I know there's a company that I would buy them occasionally. The reason I buy them occasionally is because, you know, normally a packet of crisps, a 6-pack of crisps, like €2. These are like $3.50 for 1 packet or something stupid. But again, if you're really stuck and you want to have something as a kind of a treat once a week sort of thing with your whatever is your glass of low carb wine or low carb beer or something like that, then happy days. But just an option. And general pork scratchings are great actually. You can make them yourself, but they're a chore to make. This is what I go to once or twice a week if I'm stuck for something that tastes nice. I get sugar-free jelly. Now you might be listening to this thinking, geez, you guys are experts in health and you're telling people to have artificial sweeteners. So artificial sweeteners are not good. They are definitely neurotoxic. They definitely damage your gut. They definitely promote sugar cravings, but they are definitely the lesser of evils compared to having normal full sugar versions of the food that you're having. So I'm not a fan of these type of foods, generally speaking, with artificial sweeteners. But that said, and in that context, if it's either a Diet Coke or a full sugar Coke, it's ridiculous to say I'll have the full sugar Coke because I heard the Diet one is bad for you. The full sugar one is way worse for you, believe me. So sugar-free jelly and cream instead of ice cream. And there's actually lots of low-carb ice creams you can make. We have one that's a lemon cheesecake recipe, and that is superb. I mean, it's so nice. Not that difficult to make. I can't remember the recipe off the top of my head, but I believe it involves cream, a little bit of almond flour to give it the cheesecake kind of base, grittiness, lemon, and I think the artificial sweetener we used was xylitol, but it really is delicious. It's as nice as any other ice cream. So if anyone wants any recipes, by the way, we're currently making up a recipe book. It'll be finished later on today. Just send me an email and I can pop that off to you. If you're watching this and you want to send me an email, this is my email below here. You can just take a screenshot of this, andrew.shepherd, spelled EPPARD, at control, that's an L, controldtx.com. controldtx.com. So take a screenshot of that, send me an email, and I'll bounce you back a resource pack we're making at the moment with 10 or 15 recipes in it. Okay, I'll leave it at that, guys. Thank you so much for joining me. Just wanted to do a quick one today just to kind of break down some easy recipes you could use that don't take a whole lot of effort and you know, are simple enough to make, and also just practical tips as I outlined there in some of the banners. Guys, have a good day. I will see you next week and take care of yourselves. Bye-bye.